Your children are yearning for your attention and your attachment.
They are.
And if you are not present and you take away that drug without buffering and scaffolding them enough with your presence or with another way to regulate them, they are going to kind of like a drug addict fall apart.
Welcome to Raw with Jay, the support we needed but never received. For every parent, human and heart navigating life's messier moments. A space for real stories, deep emotion and unfiltered honesty. This is for all the humans holding it together while quietly falling apart. The ones craving connection but exhausted by surface level advice. I'm Jay. I'm a family and child counsellor, mum and founder of Happy Souls Kids. I've walked through heartbreak, loneliness, betrayal, identity loss and the burnout of solo parenting and come out the other side not polished but more honest than ever. Every episode I sit down with therapists, authors and real people, the ones who've walked through the fire and come back with something real to say. And in between you'll hear raw, unfiltered stories of breakdowns and breakthroughs that have shaped me. There are no masks here, no sugarcoating, no 5-step fixes, just conversations that go there. Because sometimes the truth that you didn't even know that you needed is the one that sets you free. Welcome to Raw with Jay. Today we have such an inspirational guest, somebody that has been such an inspiration on my journey as a parent. I was reading her books when I was pregnant with my own child and she's just given me so much wisdom and knowledge, and I just want to welcome Dr Shefali. She's a clinical psychologist. She has had many best-selling books all over the world. The Conscious Parent is a book that really started my journey as being somebody that's more aware in this parenting realm. And what I love about Dr. Shefali and something I teach now as a counsellor is that it's actually not our children, it's us that needs the work. So Dr. Shefali, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with Raw with Jay and thank you for giving us your time. We're so excited for you to be here. Thank you.
So excited, thank you, and so excited to be coming to Australia. I'm coming to Sydney and Melbourne in March, and I hope your listeners feel inspired to make that shift because, once you learn conscious parenting, the problems don't go away, but the way you handle these problems change, don't they? The whole approach changes.
It does. And I have a business called Happy Souls Kids, and parents will come in and say something's wrong with my child, and and it's great with children, but it's like, can we have a couple of conversations over here as well? Because we've got 30, 40 years of habits and patterns that we're breaking as humans, and you can tell us a little bit more about that. What is conscious parenting? So for people that don't understand it, what's the difference between gentle parenting, conscious parenting? Could you just give us a really brief rundown as to what conscious parenting is?
Sure. So there's the traditional parenting, which is the authoritarian, very hierarchical, very strict kind of, you will do as I say, and the children are to be seen, not heard, and parents didn't do any internal work. Then there is the gentle parenting, which is really beautiful, but it is a strategy. It's a strategy to be gentle, which everyone should be gentle, right? But people think that it means permissive. It doesn't. It just means that you do everything with compassion, but it is still an approach. Conscious parenting is different. Conscious parenting is a philosophy, but it's more than that. It's really a pathway for parents to learn about themselves in the relationship with their children. And that's what I teach. So I teach parents to notice what kind of ego is showing up for them. And I talk about 5 different egos that can show up with your children. And if you're not careful, then you will spin in those egos and not really know how to connect with your children. So conscious parenting is about the parent evolving, transforming, and raising themselves. And then through that, the children come next. But you cannot raise an authentic child, for example, if you are not authentic yourself. You cannot teach your child to be less anxious until you are less anxious. And even if you are less anxious, it doesn't mean your child is going to be less anxious, but you at least can have a chance to teach them how to be regulated. But if you're not regulated, how can you teach anything to your child? So what I teach in conscious parenting is I give parents the tools to transform themselves, and through that transformation, they are able to better be present with their children, more connected to their children, and more available for their children.
Yeah, I love that so much. I remember reading your books and then journaling and asking, I just want to be the best parent I possibly can be for my child. And in that, we separated, and it was the most brutal time of my life. And my son was a mess, I was a mess, and all of the words that you continued to say to me during those times when I was pregnant came back to me like, I just need to work on myself. I need to work on myself. I need to work on these elements. And it's hard. It's hard to work on you when your child's there and broken and everyone's broken. And I know you've been through the separation perspective, and it's really hard. But I do find that when I am regulated, my child is regulated. An example, even recently, I work a lot. I want to save the world just like you. And, we're constantly on our phones and on technology. And when I removed myself from technology, my son removes himself from technology. And it's just such this beautiful spiral of we are constantly teaching our children, and they are our greatest teachers if we allow them to be. And I know that they're words of yours, that it's if we allow them to be, they can show us parts of us that need to be healed. And that's through that I've learned unconditional love for my child. And I now know what that is. I never did before.
Yeah, we won't know unconditional love until we have first looked at the dark places within ourselves, right? Because we have so much fear, and fear is always permeating our relationships, especially with our children, because in our most unconscious self, we see them as an extension of us. And therefore, their successes are our successes and their failures are our failures. So we're always trying to shape them in a way that doesn't let us touch on our sense of inadequacy. We want them to be happy. We want them to be successful. Those are noble pursuits, but the way we want them to do it often is because we don't want to touch the pain of our ordinariness, because we were told all our lives that we were not good enough. So our children become that mirror of how worthy do you feel, even if your child is getting a C grade, even if your child came last in the race. How worthy do you feel, and not put on your child the burden of carrying your identity. That's the ultimate kind of parent, the one who has healed themselves, that they don't need the child to carry their unfinished legacy for them. And when you can say for sure that my child doesn't need to complete my legacy, I'm not here to project my needs onto my child, my expectations, you have healed yourself. And your child will feel it. And they will be able to discover who it is they are, because they see that you are living an authentic life.
And I think that's been one of my greatest learnings when it comes to my son, is that we moved to Torquay. I thought we'd live by the land, we'd be surfing, be an earth mother. My child says he hates the beach and he just wants to be on tech, and he's a tech kid. He's extremely intelligent in the sense that he was putting batteries in toys when he was 2 years old. Now, I really tried to shun that part of him for many, many years. And no tech, we don't do tech, we don't do tech. But it has its place. That's a part of his soul. So I'm the one that had to surrender more to say, okay, I accept this part of you. I understand it's big for you. You self-regulate when, especially through the separation process, you use technology. And that was a really hard thing for me to do, to actually look at myself and say, you know what, you need to accept him, every part of him, for who he is. And it's hard as parents. I remember going to a basketball stadium and there's 200 parents during a grand final for 8-year-olds screaming at the children. And you're like, whoa, that's so big. And and you take a step back and you're like, is that the child or is that coming from the parents?
Right. Because we were raised to believe that doing more and achievement were the way to get our parents, validation, their praise. I had a client recently tell me that his father cried every time his team won, right? So we've been raised with this achievement mentality, this keep going and keep hustling and keep achieving, keep succeeding. So we then automatically put that on our children. And all children are not wired for that. Some are and some are not. So when they are not wired for that cutthroat, hustling, achieving, then they feel like they are not winning at life, that they are not good enough. All children need to feel a sense of good enoughness, no matter what they do. They are enough just because they are. And boys especially get a sense of good enoughness from how useful they feel. And if they're not feeling useful, they're going to collapse and crumble.
It's
And
so
probably
true with my son. So true.
right, he wants to fix something, he wants to
he
solve
does.
a problem, he wants to show you that he's capable. And maybe in the separation he felt so out of control that technology was the only place that he felt safe and in control.
It's true.
And that's what happens when we in real life are too busy, too overwhelmed. Then children use these proxy surrogates to fulfill that parenting void that they're feeling.
You said something really beautiful, and this is what I share with people, especially because we've got this social media ban in Australia, is you said one day, if you take the technology away, you have to be there. And it's so incredibly true, because right now we need to be more present to our children, because they found that connection piece. They found that to be seen, valued, heard through social media. Now, whether that's great or not great, it doesn't matter. That's how they got that self-confidence. What are your thoughts around all of this surrounding our social media ban? I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's such a huge subject, but we all want our kids to be off tech and in nature. We do. That's not the end goal for us. But the flip side of that is, if we take things away from children and don't explain the core issue, I'd love you to talk about what your thoughts around what's happening in Australia right now.
It's fantastic. It's amazing, because you're saving your children, you're protecting your children, because they're not capable of all that stimulation and hyper exposure. So it's really good. And this is what I'm going to be covering in my talks in Sydney and Melbourne, is how do you replace it? What do you have to do to replace it? What does it take from you to replace it? Your children are yearning for your attention and your attachment.
They are.
And if you are not present and you take away that drug without buffering and scaffolding them enough with your presence or with another way to regulate them, they are going to, kind of like a drug addict, fall apart. So I am here to train parents, to give them techniques and tools where every day for 25 to 30 minutes, they can use their presence to scaffold their children and create regulation. And I have so many tools and strategies to give parents, but the most important is the awareness that they are very developmentally needed by their children. They are literally one of the tools that children need at this age, because they don't have their own nervous system regulation. And because they don't have their own system, they are going to borrow your system. They're going to borrow your calm, your presence, your attention through their storms. And all of adolescents, till like 25, 26, they are going through tremendous identity change. So because their identity is so shape-shifting, they need a really stable backdrop of consistent, available parenting. And if you are chaotic and their identity is chaotic, that is going to be too much for them. And the world is very chaotic right now. So parents need to be that very steady anchor while their identity is changing.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And it is us being stable for our kids right now, because there's just so much going on. And I think kids can feel when we're distant. They can feel when we're not quite there with them. Like, even if you're sitting playing a game of Uno with them, if your mind is somewhere else, they can feel that. And I think it is really important to have that beautiful connection piece. For the first time, my son, when we were out this week, was like, "You can't hug me in public. I'm getting too old now." And I was like, oh, breaks my heart. But as I know that you also talk about it, our whole entire identity as a parent is to teach our children independence, is to allow them to be who it is that they are. And so I just have to swallow my pride a little bit at the moment and be like, that's okay. He's on his journey. He's okay. But this brings us into the next part, which is the separation piece, which is co-parenting. I know last time that we had an interview a few years ago, we discussed this, that how it's so challenging when one person's conscious and the other person's not, or you've both got your different levels of consciousness, whatever that means. And so Separation is massive. It is, for me, it was like I was smashed into by a semi trailer. One minute I had a family, the next minute I didn't. It was very brutal. It was very big. And I just isolated myself for a few years to be able to deal with all of the things that were coming up for me, and just to be a mum, to have that stability for my son and make sure that he was feeling really stable. But I do really like the way that you position separation, because I know that you have been through divorce and separation yourself. And can you take us through the different elements of moving through different versions of ourselves and what that means for, sometimes it's a blessing for us to go through these elements to step into a new version of us.
Yes. Look, culture has so indoctrinated us that we're supposed to be married forever. And the fact is that more marriages don't stay forever. And a whole chunk of those that do stay forever are dysfunctional relationships. And this is not because the couple is flawed. It's because we were not genetically wired, biologically, evolutionarily wired to live this long in one monogamous, exclusive relationship. It's actually a stupid setup, because we are evolving, we are changing, and who we were when we entered the relationship is not who we will be most likely 20 years down the line. And the container that the institution of marriage provided may not be big enough, wide enough, deep enough for who you've evolved to be. And this could be your partner leaving you, you falling in love, you growing, you evolving, you having an indiscretion, your partner having it doesn't matter. The fact is not that the couple was a failure. It's because we were sold a lie. And we got attached to that lie, especially us women, because we have the Cinderella fantasy. We attach
the white
really
picket
strong,
fence.
the white picket fence, you're down the aisle. It's all this fantasy that culture has sold, really, to manipulate, exploit, and profit from you. And then when you get the rug pulled out from under you, your partner changes, they cheat, they walk away, whatever, or you do that, the fantasy crumbles and you feel as if you are nothing, and you go through this really dark tunnel, this heartbreak of losing the fantasy, right? The fantasy is unrealistic. It is not realistic. And then we feel betrayed, then we feel like the person never loved us, then we throw out the baby with the bathwater, then we don't want to trust anybody again. And it's really hard to come back from any of it. However, if we had been indoctrinated to believe the truth, which is relationships are impossibly difficult. It's quite likely you will grow out of this person, or they will grow out of you, or something will happen and you will feel it's a personal attack. But it's not a personal attack.
No,
Whatever
it's a
your
blessing.
partner,
it's often a blessing. Yeah,
it's all, and it's just growth, and it's just, every relationship is perfectly suited for you to wake up. But because we get so attached, we can't get over the fantasy not coming true. So I always talk about divorce and separation as you are leaving behind your inauthentic self, and you're now finally going to merge, marry, and enter a union with your more authentic self. So when I look at my divorce, it's still shocking to me. I still can't believe it happened because I was so in the fantasy. But it had to happen because the container became too small. It became too narrow. I far outgrew the container, and I had to be true to myself. But culture doesn't let us do this easily. You see, culture could at least allow us to do it easily, but it keeps judging us, and then we internalize the judgment and we believe it's true, but it's actually not true. So we have to do ourselves a favor and give ourselves the permission to evolve and to say, this doesn't work for me anymore. We have one life. We're not coming back in this body, at least, ever again. So why live it in a miserable way? Why not ask for the best? Not in terms of a better human being, but in terms of a better environment, a better resonance, a better match. We deserve that. And only when we feel worthy of it will we allow ourselves to get there.
I love that so much. First of all, I'll say that I'm not the person I was last week, never mind this week. So I'm definitely constantly evolving, and my separation was absolutely an absolute blessing for me. Every part of it has helped me to become a better person and more authentic, which is why this podcast is called Raw with Jay, because I'm able to be authentic and honest and vulnerable now. But yeah, I call it the mud, when we're in that element of just the mud, and it's hard. It's really tough, but there is hope on the other side for people that are going through the process, that it is a really tough process, but you learn so much more about yourself. I had to learn boundaries. I had to learn to stand up for myself and not be a people pleaser. And I never could have learnt those lessons if I hadn't have gone through that process. So I have gratitude towards it. If you asked me 5 years ago, I was not okay.
Right,
but I think when we get to the other side, but I think for me, it's been really challenging for my child. He's really struggled. There's a lot of distance. I do 98% of the parenting, and it's been really hard for him. So is there any tips and tricks that you can give parents to be able to support their children during these really hard times? I know connection, that we've already talked about, is really important, giving them a voice control. But what else can we do with our kids during those moments where they're broken and we're broken?
I think being straight with them, your father, your mother, whatever it is struggling. And out of their heart, which is small, they are giving you the most they can. And it sucks because you want more. But this person cannot give you more. They do not have the capacity. And I'm so sorry for you to absorb that pain and say, I'm here. One good parent is good enough. And I'm here. And I'm so sorry that they're not able to give you more. But this is the max they can give you. So just don't, it's not you. It's their capacity to not give more. They can't do it because they were traumatized. But you're going to think it's me. If he loved me more, he would do it. No, that's not true. This is the maximum he can love you, because everybody has a different capacity, and you can teach him. Some houses are big, some houses are small. Some people's inner house is big, some people's inner house is small. Your father's inner house is really tiny. It only has a 2x2 room, and you get most of that. But that's about it. He cannot even give himself love. And I'm really sorry, but if he could, he would. He just can't.
Yeah, I love that. It is that capacity where people will stay within their window of tolerance and their boundaries within self. And these are definitely conversations that I have. I work with separated couples as well, is just saying they just don't have the capacity, and just saying to a child, like, they're giving you all that they can right now. Now, you talk about quests, and you talk about how we either go through really hard times in our life where it rips us to pieces, or like yourself, you choose to go on a quest to become a better self. Could you talk to me about that a little bit?
Well, I think many people don't want to step out of their comfort zone because it's too scary. But many want to step out of their comfort zone and live this life like an adventure. And for those who do, I call them the seekers, they are okay with seeing this life as a journey, and that we are on a quest. On a quest for what? On a quest for our most authentic self. People who are seekers typically don't look at life in terms of success and failure. They look at every experience as taking us closer to our own inner home, which is our most authentic self. So they're not calibrating the world like normal people. They're not looking at their life like how normal people look at it. They are looking at their lives in a very different way. So to be a seeker is to be very different from the crowd, and to refuse to measure themselves by how the others in the matrix measure themselves. They have different standards for love. They have different standards for purpose, different standards for success and happiness, and they're not afraid to redefine those words according to their own standards. Like I'm completely not living my life like my friends in the matrix. And I've accepted that. And I don't want to live my life that way. So yes, I will pay a price in terms of people may judge me, or I may feel alone, but I'm not settling for what they're willing to settle for. They're willing to live in comfort and live in a vibration of low energy or anxiety or fear or stress. I'm not willing to do that anymore. So I'd rather be alone than live in that vibration, because I know that as a seeker, I set my own standards and I don't conform. But there's a price to pay for non-conformity, and most people don't want to pay that price. But I think more and more women in their mid-age are realizing that they're okay paying the price. Because the price to pay for the prize of their own authentic self is worthy. It's a worthy one.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful to say. And it is really challenging because sometimes it's not about fitting in, it's about fitting out. And that's really scary. It can be really scary at times. And I think as time's gone on, I talk about with children layers of friendship. And if you're in my middle circle, I am your biggest cheerleader. Like, I will do everything for you. But the moment that switches up a bit, and I think you know what I mean by that, is that something changes in the friendship and you know that it's not as solid as it used to be. Like, I will put them in a different layer of friendship, and people are extremely triggered by that. But I think that as we get older, we just, I don't know, you tell me, like, we don't have as much time for the BS like we used to. And unless 100%. It is quite a conscious friendship, for me, I just move away from it. If there's betrayal, I'm not going to be nasty to that person, but I am going to move away from you until you can show up with some level of respect. But people do find this very triggering, Dr. Shefali, and it is a really hard thing. My question to you is, what is the difference and where do we step away from compassion versus betrayal, essentially? So we can show up in our friendships in a compassionate, where do we draw the line there about having compassion for certain people and just knowing when to pull the trigger and just say that's enough?
I don't think that you can always have compassion for people's pain, but you can have an absolute zero tolerance policy for their bullshit, right? So you can wish them well. You're not going to harm anybody, but you certainly don't have to allow anybody into your home, into your mind, into your space, into your email box, into your social life. You can set a standard for yourself that is very high, and only one or two people may be able to meet that, the inner circle standard. And that's a good standard to have. If you have 2 or 3 people in your inner circle, you're doing good. And the rest can be in level 2, level 3. And this is not to be bitchy or cocky. It's just to be expedient and to be realistic. I can only give 5 people my level 1 level friendship. The other people are going to get me much less. Yeah. And that's really a nice way to know who deserves your full-on, full-blown daily attention, who deserves your weekly attention, who deserves your monthly attention. I think that's sensible. And that actually keeps everybody happy because you're not over-promising that then you have to regret and feel bad and guilty. It's more realistic to just know who is worth your fullest attention and who isn't.
How would that for you work? Like, what would the layers, or we talk about with the children in practice, I talk about friendship circles, and we talk about the qualities that you look for in a friendship. Like, how do you decide which friendships or relationships or family dynamics, that's a big one coming up to Christmas. How is it right now that you decide which layer of friendship that people are in for you?
I think you just become really good at aligning with the truth that shows up within you, and you trust your body. Right now, I don't think I have anybody in my life that I spend time with that I don't want to. Not an event, not a party, not a luncheon. I won't even do a moment if it's not aligned. And once you connect to what is the truth for you and you're willing to back it up by your actions, so even if it's your best friend from high school, but you don't get along with her anymore, so you cut out all the bullshit, you meet her once in a while, you back up what you feel. So when you're with her, you're like, you know what, I'm not feeling good right now. I'm not feeling lit up. I'm feeling guarded. I'm feeling like I can't trust her. You follow that wisdom and you back it up by an action, which means I'm not going to see her, even though she wants to see me next week. I'm not going to do it. And I may do it gently, I may make an excuse, I may be compassionate, but I will back up my intuition with an action. And slowly, my entire life will begin to feel very aligned because I'm backing up my intuition with my behavior. That's the thing we don't do. We have the feeling, but we don't back it up. Right? And I don't mean just any flighty feeling. I mean the real lived, embodied sense that I'm not feeling like I'm my most authentic self. And then you set your standards. For me, my standard to have you in my inner circle is you have to stand the test of time. You have to have done the inner work. You have to kind of think like me, and, we have to have the same world vision. You cannot be politically not the same as me. I'm sorry. I have high standards, and you have to show up and be ready to be present. And if you're not, I'm going to love you the same, but I'll put you to another level because I want to show up fully for my level 1 people.
I love this so much because it's a conversation that I do have in practice, and people will say, but I feel bad. They've been my friend for such a long time, or a family member or whatever it is. And we do talk about the different layers of friendship, and it's okay to let some things go. And whether that's a relationship that you're in, whether that's a family dynamic, whether that's with friendships, it's okay to let things go if you're not really feeling it. Or maybe it's a reason, season, lifetime. Sometimes people are in your life for different reasons to teach us, just like we talked about with relationships. That's really beautiful for you to say. I think it's going to help a lot of people, to help them understand that it's okay to move away if you don't feel safe, or if you just don't feel that you're connected in those elements. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think people don't feel worthy to have standards. I think people feel like they're selfish or bitchy or demanding or entitled to say, I only allow this caliber of people in my life. It sounds so cocky, doesn't it? Who do you think you are? I think I'm something. I think I'm valuable. And my time is valuable. But if you don't believe you're valuable, you'll allow any riffraff from the street, any family member, just because they're family, even if it's your sister. You don't need to be even with your sister. But I'm not saying to cut them off. I'm just saying to calibrate, right? Like, you can still love her, you can still be with her. But if she's toxic for you, you can say, I need space. I need to allow you to move away I need to practice being okay because I deserve better energy around me because that's how I function the best. I think we are allowed to say that, and we don't give ourselves permission because we don't feel that worthy.
I love that so much. It's putting people in different layers of friendship. It doesn't mean they're necessarily out of our life. It just means that they're not in your inner circle, essentially. That brings us to self-love. I know self-love is really big as a parent. Can you talk about why it is so important for us as parents to really practice self-love and what that essentially means?
Yeah, I think it's really unfair to your children if you don't love yourself. I think you're a burden. I think you're a miserable weight on them. A parent who doesn't love themselves is a miserable weight on their children. I know that sounds really harsh because you know why? Your child will sense it, and then your child will feel like they need to fill in the missing pieces for you. The best gift you can give your child is for you to love yourself, accept yourself, and be at peace with yourself. The more you are, the less you will ask them to contort themselves for you. You will let them be in their authentic struggle, in their authentic life experience, without needing them to make it for you so that you feel good about yourself, so that you love yourself more. They can get the A grade for them. They don't have to get it for you. But when you don't love yourself, you will steer your children to do things so that you feel loved. And that is the most unfair thing you can do for your children.
Oh, that's a big one, isn't it? It's that level of control, of trying to control a child to be able to get that self-worth. And I've done it in parenting, absolutely. Like, I pull myself up on it and I will work on that. But we have that element of, I'm a parent, that's my job, and it's that level of control. And
Yes.
that brings us kind of into the conscious parenting. So can you explain that in a lot of depth? Can we go deeper on this? What does it mean? How does somebody do the work? What does the work mean? What can they do for themselves? If we're talking to people that have never even heard of the term conscious parenting, like, what can somebody do to be able to really better themselves as a human being and as a parent?
I think it's really a shame that we become parents without taking a single psychology course, without going to a coach or a therapist, without reading a book on mindfulness. You cannot be a good parent, I know this sounds like a judgment, until and unless you learn how to self-love and self-regulate. These are the two essential qualities of being a good parent. If you can't do that, so how does one do that? We start by taking courses, I have a coaching institute. I train people to do this for themselves and for their children. I teach meditation, I teach mindfulness, I teach self-regulation, I teach self-acceptance. So in a nutshell, it's really hard for me to tell you right now. You have to go on that quest, go on that journey, take the first step and say, you know what? I never went to parent school and I'm having children. I need to go to parent school. That's what I call my coaching institute.
Wouldn't it be great if everybody had like a parenting course that they had to do when they became
You should.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It should be a law. And you do the work, you look at yourself, you look at your triggers, you look at your behaviors, you go to the root, you begin to see your patterns, and you begin to deconstruct them and practice. And you have to practice with other parents. That's why I do this coaching institute with other parents. And if anyone wants to explore my coaching institute, and they come via you, I will give them a $500 off coupon. So they can just say they heard me on your podcast and she talked about this $500 coupon. I have 2 coaching groups every year, and you do it with other people and you do it together, and you get really well trained on how to be a better parent. But yeah, you have to be a seeker. You have to want this. You have to desire growth and evolution.
Something you've said before is every human is a parent to their own inner child. I just think that's so profound. Like, we all have an inner child. So
yes,
essentially,
so
even
everyone
if you're
is
not
a parent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Can you explain
Yes.
a little bit more about that, of what that means, and how can we parent our own inner child?
Yes. So we all had an inner child that was left untended, unhealed from childhood, where we had needs to be seen, to be understood, to be validated. And our parents just couldn't do it because they didn't have the emotional bandwidth. So that inner child is still hungry inside. And I teach how to reparent that inner child, and through this inner work. And basically, it's recognizing the patterns, seeing how broken the inner child is, how the inner child lives in unworthiness and fear. And then I teach how to activate your adult self, and then how the adult self can heal this inner child and raise the inner child while you're raising your real child.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I know in parenting, we talk about mirroring a lot. I know that there's parts of my child that I get really frustrated by, and I will say to him, come on, let's go. And he'll be starting a project or something like that. And I have to say to him, oh, that's okay, you got distracted, and having that level of compassion. But that compassion for my child didn't come until I learned to have compassion for myself. And an analogy is like when you're in the kitchen and you pour over the milk, rather than getting really angry with yourself, can't we just sit back and say, that's okay, I made a mistake? And I think through the mistakes that we learn as humans, it really helps our children. And so when my child makes a mistake, I can say, oh, that's okay, you made a mistake. And he will say the same thing back to me.
Because your self-talk
yes,
is how you will talk to your children. We see how we are with ourselves in how we are with our children. How are you with your real child is how you will be with your inner child. Or how you are with your inner child would be how you are with the real child. So if you're yelling at your child all the time, it's because you're yelling at yourself all the time. If you're judging your child all the time, it's because you're judging yourself all the time. The outer relationship is a mirror of the inner relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And we also talk about parents and having forgiveness for them. I think that this is a really important conversation to finish up on, is that our parents were doing their best, as you say. And we need to have that level of compassion for our own parents, that they were doing the best job that they can. Because I don't know about you, but when I was a child, I thought my parents were Superman and Superwoman. I was like, they have everything together, everything's wonderful. And then you come to be a parent and you're like, I'm just working this out day by day. Like, it is so hard to be a parent.
So
and I think
hard.
we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge the fact that it is really hard. We're not given a rule book. We're not to say this is the DNA of your child. If you have several children, you've got to parent them in different ways. So could you just talk about the parent element and just having more love and compassion to our parents? Because we just moved back to Melbourne with family, and my dad is such a beautiful grandpa to my son, and it's so healing for me because he wasn't like that with me growing up. And it's so beautiful that I can now teach him different ways to show up in my son, and they are just so well connected, and it's beautiful to watch. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, every parent does the best they can with the tools that they have and the trauma they came from. So sure, you can be upset at your parents, but the best way to treat them is to see their inner child, their unhealed self. And then, yes, you can move away. If they're toxic, you can create boundaries. But it's so silly to hold resentment toward them, because how they were with you is how they were with themselves and how they were raised to be. So I'm not saying to let them go guilt-free, but also to carry resentment is just silly, because you're carrying that weight all around. Instead, we learn to forgive our parents for all that they did not know, for all the harm that they caused. And yeah, you can create a boundary, but it's really the deep understanding that your parents were doing the best they could with the tools that they had.
Yeah, I love that. I moved away from Melbourne for 4 years because I just needed to work on myself, and I needed to work out the soul essence of who I was as a human being. I spent a lot of time in isolation. It was really challenging to be able to move through those elements of me. But coming back, I can now see the patterns so clearly. Like, you're just like, whoa, this is really big. But I do think that it takes us to do that deeper work on ourselves to be able to see where the patterns and things come from, and then you can look at them with compassion and empathy rather than looking through them like my dad wasn't there a lot, my mum was, but my thought process as a child was he doesn't love me. And parents do love us in different ways, and it mightn't be through the voice or the words because they never heard that themselves, so it's really hard for them. So it's having that love and compassion, I think, is beautiful. Now, Dr. Shefali, we did mention you are coming here in March to Melbourne and Sydney, which is so incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to come and see you and give you a hug in person. And you've just been such a huge inspiration, not just to my journey, but to so many other people's, and teaching us that there is another way to parent, and it's to parent ourselves. And I think that's the hardest part, is that as parents, we need to realize that we don't always get it right, and that's okay. And it's okay to have compassion for those elements of us, to say and be honest with our children as well, and say, hey, I don't always get it right. I'm here to work with you. We're a team rather than that hierarchy. So yes, I'm sure I'll put a link to the tickets to your show. And is there anything else that you just wanted to add? Or
I really hope your listeners bring their friends, have a night out with your girlfriends, bring your partners if you need, and just come for a different perspective. And I will leave you with tips and tools and strategies. It's March 11th and March 12th, Melbourne and Sydney. And also, if people are interested in becoming one of my coaches, they can explore that, get $500 off. I have many Australian coaches already in my institute, and they have been spreading the word. So this is how we do it. We develop ourselves, we become the best conscious parents we can be, and then we break patterns and we spread the word. So thank you for being one of those supporters and ambassadors of this message.
Well, as a parent, and I'm sure from my child, I just want to say thank you. We have a really connected relationship because I have parented him this way, and it's not always easy. It's hard, and he triggers me more than anybody else. But we have an opportunity to be the parent to our children that we weren't parented in a way that we needed. So yeah, thank you, and I can't wait to see you, and I honor you, and I appreciate you for all of the work that you've done with all of us. And yes,
thank you. Thank you to you and your listeners. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Dr. Shefali. Thanks for being here. If you're a parent, carer, or somebody walking alongside children in this wild world, come visit us at Happy Souls Kids, a platform we created to give kids the tools that we never had and offer parents the support that we've so often had to figure out alone. Can you imagine kids had the tools that we now have as adults? That's the work that we do. Until next time, keep showing up, keep feeling deeply, and keep finding your way home to yourself. Love, light, and gratitude, Jay.